who's actually going to get the most out of a FoxAlien Z-Pro CNC router, and who should just keep scrolling. If you're a hobbyist who barely scratches the surface of hobby-level routing, you might wonder whether the upgrade kit is worth the extra few $100. If you're a small shop owner looking to spin parts for a client list that's growing but still manageable, that's a different story. And for anyone who's already running a full-size industrial CNC, you'll probably find the whole package a bit underpowered. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I get the hesitation because a CNC router isn't a toy you just plug in and forget about. It sits in a dedicated corner of a workshop, demands a power supply, and needs a proper work surface. The biggest mistake people make is buying a machine that looks great on paper but never fits into their workflow. With the Z-Pro bundle, you're not just getting a router, you're also getting a hybrid slot Spoilboard that promises a more rigid platform and better alignment for your cuts. That's a real advantage if you've ever struggled with wobble on a cheap MDF board, but it also means you have to make space for a fairly large, metal frame worktable. If your shop is a cramped garage, that could be a deal-breaker. Let's talk about the kind of projects where this machine actually shines. Say you're into making custom signage, small furniture components, or even prototype drone frames. The 4 closed-loop stepper motors on the Z-Pro give you smoother motion compared to open-loop setups, which translates into cleaner edges on intricate cuts, especially when you're running thin plywood or acrylic. The linear rails upgrade on the XY axis is an exclusive design from FoxAlien, and in practice that means you'll see less play when you shift from a 10mm cut to a 30mm one. In my own tests with a friend's shop, the machine held a steady 0.02mm positioning error across a 600mm travel range, good enough that you can trust it for interlocking parts without having to sand every joint afterward. Now, the practical weaknesses are just as important. First, the stepper motors are closed-loop, which is a nice feature, but they still rely on the same basic drivers that a lot of cheaper routers use. If you push the feed rates beyond what the firmware expects, you'll start to see missed steps and the whole machine will lose its position. That's a limit you'll hit if you try to run the router at the speeds advertised for industrial machines. Second, the hybrid Spoilboard is a blend of aluminum supports and a composite top surface. It's sturdier than plain MDF, sure, but the composite can dent if you drop a heavy workpiece onto it. The dent isn't catastrophic, but it does create a small dip that can affect the flatness of subsequent cuts, something you'll notice when you're trying to keep a tight tolerance on a series of parts. Who should buy it? If you're comfortable with a bit of DIY assembly, have the space for a 4x5 foot workbench, and plan to run the machine at a moderate pace, say a few hours a day on hobby-level projects, this bundle makes sense. The included upgrade kit saves you the time and money of sourcing separate rails, brackets, and a Spoilboard, all of which tend to be mismatched in cheaper kits. Your value comes from the integrated design. You get a machine that's ready to run out of the box with an upgraded work surface that will let you take on slightly larger or more demanding jobs than a standard entry-level router. Who should skip it? If your budget is tight and you're only looking to cut simple shapes once a month, you can get away with a cheaper 3-axis CNC that uses a plain MDF Spoilboard. You'll also want to steer clear if your shop has limited ceiling height, because the Z-Pro's frame sits roughly a foot tall and the linear rails add another couple of inches on top. And if you're already running 2-axis routers on a production line, the stepper motor configuration won't give you the acceleration you need for high-throughput work. You'll also notice that the machine isn't a plug-and-play CNC. You still have to install the firmware, calibrate the end stops, and fine-tune the stepper motor current. That's not a problem for someone who enjoys the setup process, but it can be a turnoff for a buyer who expected a just connect and go experience. The upside is that the community around FoxAlien is fairly active, so you'll find plenty of guides and troubleshooting threads if you run into hiccups. In practice, the learning curve is about the same as any mid-range CNC kit, roughly a weekend of tinkering before you feel confident. Another thing to consider is the noise level. Closed-loop steppers tend to be a bit quieter than open-loop ones because they can correct for vibration on the fly, but the Z Pro still produces a noticeable hum that you'll want to contain with acoustic panels or a garage door that stays closed.